Alright, here we go. Welcome to video 2 here in our development of the Space Invaders game using the Pygame module with Python. So on my first video, we talked about making the first alien, if you will, the crab alien. I looked this up. This is what you did in class, as a matter of fact. Let me see if I still have it here. Space Invaders right here. So we made this character here. With Pygame, it's pretty easy to make these very kind of pixelated, rectangular, simple geometries. We can draw these easily, and so we did this crab one. We went through the process of making the crab. Always understand that when you're drawing rectangles, because this is all composed of rectangles, squares really, but rectangles. When you're drawing rectangles, you have to think of the origin of the rectangle as the top left corner here, for example, of this whole crab. And so we drew that in part A, the first video here in Space Invaders. Today, in this second video, I want to discuss how we can place all this code in a separate file, because it's too much. It's just too much code. We're at 63 lines. Now I say too much, and if you're a real programmer, because I'm not, I program, but I'm definitely not a developer, software developer. So if you're a real programmer, probably you'll think 63 lines of code is nothing. And you're probably right. But what we are looking at here is we're gonna add code here, and it's easy to start getting lost. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna use the object capability of object-oriented programming, which Python is, just like Java. And so what we do is we make classes. That's what they're called. They're classes. And we put a lot of code in there. And anytime that we want to, for example, draw a crab, all we need to do is create a new crab object using the class. Now, I said all that, but let me show you so that you can see what I'm talking about. I'm going to create a new class, so I'm going to click here on this create new file icon. I say new class because I'm so used to doing Java, but this is just a new file. Now, the way we're going to start here, and I have it here because I coded it already. I'm not as familiar with the syntax for Python yet as I am with Java, so there might be some things I need to look up. But we create a class. In this case, we give it a name that is appropriate. I'm going to call this the crab class. You need the colon there. Now, in this crab class, what I'm going to have is I'm going to have all the instructions to make the crab. When you have a class, which is what I have here, a class, we can define this very special method called init that is used to initialize variables. When we have class, we're going to start using the self parameter. Now I'm going to put here a few more things. I'll mention what they are in a little bit, but I'm going to first make this start underscore x, start underscore y. I'll leave it like that for now. I'll be adding a few more things. And then just right now I'm going to do this self.x is equal to start x. I need to have at least one line of code in here. Notice the indentation here. So okay, I have this init method. So just again, notice the indentation. I'm going to pause really quick. Okay, I paused because I was looking up some preferences here, and I didn't want to spend too much time doing that while recording here. If you click on this preference and you click indentations, you can click here on show indent guides, and we apply, and basically it kind of shows you where this indentation. It's a little easier. See when you make an error. Python is very picky when it comes to indentation. So we have this method, and then I'm going to create a new method called def. We define a new method using def the word def, short for definition, and we're going to call it draw. Now in this def draw method, I'm going to take all this code, I'm going to start right here with this location and size all the way to the last draw rectangle. I'm going to cut it, Control X, cuts, and then I'm going to paste it in here. All of that code. Now, so we have all this code now, and there's a few things that we need to do. First, X is a variable that I need to initialize. Here I need to say X equals something. Now if I put 100 and then Y equals 100, which is what I had in my previous and what I have in my actual main method, I have 100 equals X equals 100, Y equals 100, delta equals 10. If I actually put this here, then I'm gonna have a problem. The problem, this is gonna run fine, but the problem is that every crab that I draw will always, when I draw the crab, it's always gonna start at location 100 to the right, 100 down, and it's always gonna have, every little square in it is always gonna have a width and a height of 10, which is not what I want. I want to be able to draw crabs all over the place. So let me just kind of walk you through this. If obviously we have questions, I want to make time for questions somewhere and at some point. But what I'm going to say is X is equal to this right here, self X, self.x. Now this self.x, in Java we call these instance variables or fields. In Python, I'm going to assume that they're probably called something very similar. But this self.x is a variable that belongs to every crab. Every crab is going to have this variable called self.x. You can make it equal whatever you want. But what I'm trying to say is that you can use this self.x variable in any method inside this crab class. So I can use it in the init method. As a matter of fact, I initialize it in the init method. And I can also use it in the draw method. If I had just X equals here, it's not true that this X would be the same as the X down here. This variable X doesn't necessarily live in every method within the crab class. So again, this is something specific to Python. Again, I'm not a programmer, but just kind of go with this for now. Look it up if you need to. That's what I've been doing. So self.x is going to equal whatever start x is equal, which means that I need a self.y, and that's going to equal whatever start underscore y is, which is the second parameter here. And so I'm going to say y. Now the reason why I need to put here y equals self.y is because I don't want to be changing all these x's that I coded in here. You see all these? Forget the ones right here. Starting all these x's, I don't want to put a self.x in front of every x here. There's a quick way of doing that by replacing all, but I'm not going to do it. And then I don't want to put a self.y in every single one of these. And so I'm just going to put here x is equal to self.x, y equals whatever self.y is. And those two, self.x.x is equal whatever start x is, self.y equals whatever start y is. I need one for delta as well, so I'll just do that. Self.delta, which means that right here I need self.delta equals, I need to make a third argument. You can call it W if you want. It doesn't matter what name I give it. The width, I put W for width, so there we go. And then there's one more thing that we need to do, and that's create a variable called crab color. That I can actually put here if I want. If all of my crabs are going to be the same color, I could just actually copy this from my previous code right here, crab color, cut it, Control X will cut, and I can paste it here so that I'm going to just hard code this. I'm going to say every crab is going to have a color of green. Any crab I draw, it's going to be green. So I'm kind of tying my hands here with the color, but it's okay. If I wanted to have crabs be different colors, then I would add it as an argument here. I would put here crab color and then self.crab color, so on and so forth, but I'm not going to do that. And then the window. The window is another object that needs to be passed in here. I'm actually going to put that at the very front here. I'm going to put here window. I'm going to spell the whole thing. It doesn't make a difference if I just put window. And I'm going to say that self.win is equal to window. Whatever this is, self.win equals that. And so finally here, I'll put here that win is equal to whatever self.win is. I'm pretty sure there's different ways to go about this. Maybe even better ways to go about this. But we're going to test this out. If necessary, later on we can make a few changes and go from there. Now, something very important here, if I do Control S to save, I need to save this in the same directory, in the same folder where I have my SpaceInvaders from home Python file. And that is in here, 2009 APCSP. That's from video 1. That's right here, SpaceInvaders from home. From home because we're locked down, you know, we're working from home now. So I'm gonna give this name aliens, the name aliens, because this is where I'm gonna have all the aliens. Crab is the first one. I'm gonna save. Good. Okay, now we have this code. Now let's see the convenience of having all this code that draws a crab for me within its own class. Now, if I go to this SpaceInvaders from home and I say, okay, well, I want a crab, and let's suppose here, for example, the name of the crab is Little Nick. Nick is a crab. Now, if I want to make a crab, I need to send a crab a few things to know where to start. Some arguments. Those arguments are right here, what are going to be used to initialize the window, the start X, start Y, and the width. And then we need those values because those values in turn are going to give a value to self X, self Y, self delta, and self win. And then those are going to be used here as well. And in programming, we need to start getting more and more comfortable with inputting something, sending something as an argument, and then the transferring of data back and forth. So knowing what values are being stored where, and so on and so forth. So let's say that I want to make a crab, and I want this crab to be I don't know, 50 units, 50 pixels to the right, and then maybe 50 pixels down. Actually, I'm mistaken. The first thing I need to send it is the window. You see here, windows. Forget self. Self is not, it's there, but we're not counting it. I need to send it with a window. Where do I want to draw my crab? Well, I want to draw it. I already have a variable here for the window, win. I'm going to send the window. I want it, start X is going to be 50, start Y is going to be 50. That's where I'm starting. And then I also need the width. Oh, come on. Did I just change it? Oh, this is sorry, I need to close this one. So window, start X, start Y, and the width of the crab. How big do I want the crab? So I'll put here 10. Good. Now this just makes the crab. I just got done coding Java, so I might mess up some of the syntax here. Okay, so this creates a crab. So Nick is a crab. I want to send my crab the window where I want to eventually draw the crab, the X and Y locations where I want to position it, and then how wide, how big I want the crab. Now notice that we actually have some variables here. These are very useful variables. Why don't we just use these? Instead of 50, send X. X is 100. Instead of 50, I send it Y, and instead of 10, I send it delta. Now, if I run this, actually, there's a few things that I need to do here. First, I need to let this main method, this SpaceInvaders from home Python file, I need to let it know that I'm going to use some code from a different file, from this aliens.python file. And so I'm going to say from aliens, that's the name of the file. I want to import every class. Import all. The asterisk stands for all. So from aliens, import all. Now, right now I only have one class called the crab class, but eventually I'll have more than one class. I'll have more classes. And so I want to import them all. Now I'm going to save this just to make sure this is good. Notice the asterisk right there tells me that I haven't saved this file. So from aliens, import all. Let me run this. Okay, nothing happens, but I don't get any errors. Now let me show you what would happen if I comment this out. If I put the pound symbol, I comment that out and I run, I get an error. It says, let me show you what it says. It says the name crab is not defined. Crab meaning this right here, crab. Now this comes from right here, the class name. So Nick is a crab. When you make a class, you can start making objects from that class. So Nick is an object that is a crab. And so that's why I need to let this file know where I'm getting that information from. So from aliens, import all. So Nick is a crab. Nick equals a crab. Now, the reason I don't see a crab on the window, nothing, is because the code that takes care of drawing all these rectangles is in this draw method. All this code right here. It's in the draw method. And so I need to execute all this code. And the way I do that is I say, okay, Nick, you're a crab, and you have a method that takes care of drawing all rectangles to draw this crab. That method requires no arguments. I could, as a matter of fact, just sent all this to the draw method. So I could have put here these arguments. Window start X, start Y, end up with, I could have put them here. But if I make another method within the crab class, a different method, and I might need to use these variables, right here I can just send them once to this constructor. That's what this is called. Init method is called a constructor. At least in Java it is. Send it once here. I don't have to send it to each method. So I'll leave it like this. Nick.draw. And then I run this. And of course, I need did I put self? I think I may have forgotten the self. Yeah, I actually need to put a self here. Self. There we go. Let me save. And then let's try it one more time. Okay. My alien class also needs to know about Pygame because I'm using this command. Check this out. This is a Pygame command, pygame.draw. It's the first one. That's why this one's highlighted. It's the first one it ran into. It doesn't know, hey, I don't know what you're trying to do here. Pygame.draw.rectangle. When I had it here in the SpaceInvaders from home, it worked because I had imported Pygame. So I told this file where those commands are. So I need to actually, in my aliens, I also need to import Pygame. Again, one of many methods, not necessarily the best, but let's try it and hope this works out. Good. Now we have one alien. Now you might ask yourself, okay, well, we already had this. This was working fine. Well, it was working fine, but now I have a mechanism to draw more than one alien without having to write a lot of code. Now let me make the alien a little smaller. I'm going to make it like width of 5. And there we go. Now let's say I want to draw more than one alien. I want to do 2. Okay, well now if I want to draw 2 aliens, it's actually pretty simple. I'm going to say, now I need to think about if I recall correctly, the width of each alien, let me count, okay? It's 1, 2, 3, and then 6, and then 9, and 11. So at least 12. 11, and you give each side at least one square, that's 13. So I'm gonna do 15 to be on the safe side. So I'm gonna say I want to draw my next alien at 15 units from Nick, which means that X is gonna be equal to, each square is 5, right? 5 times 15. I'm going to do something like this. X is what it used to be, 100, plus 5, or delta, times 15. That's going to put some space, 15, basically 15 spaces in between. Because if this is 100, this crab is taking up, like, I don't know, all the way up to 100 and 210, I believe. Okay, and then Y is going to be the same. I don't want to change Y, so which means I'm just going to leave it here. If I change Y, my next crab, I'll show you what will happen in a minute. But now I'm going to make a new crab. I'm going to call this crab Alex. Equals this new crab. Alex is a crab. I also want to draw it on the window. I want it to be at X, which has changed now. X is no longer 100. It's 100 plus 150. 15 times delta, actually 75. 175. Y, I'm going to use the same value. I want delta for the width. So this creates another crab, and I'm going to then draw the crab. All right, let's see what happens. Perfect. And so you realize that the time that you spent, because you spent some class time on this, the time that you spent drawing a crab, and a lot of you did the squid, and you did a few more, at least 3. The time that you spent writing all this has paid off, because now if I want to draw crabs, and we hadn't made this crab class previously, but now we do. Now if I want to draw crabs, all I have to do is like need to create a crab, tell it where to draw the crab, so at what X and Y location, where on the window, and then specify the size of each small square, in this case 5. Now notice here that I'm basically saying that each crab I need to allocate 15 units per crab, and if I increase this to 10 again, then I should be good. Perfect. Now let me show you what would happen if I changed to Y. Alex is a new crab. What if I didn't want it? I didn't want to draw the crab at Y equals 100. So I put here like Y equals 200, for example. And then I made the crab, and then I drew the crab. Well, now Alex is below Nick. Here's Nick, and here's Alex. Because I went, this is gonna time out, but I went 175 to the right, and then 200 down, and right here I went 100. Let me run it one more time. And right here I went 100 to the right, and then 100 down. And now we have multiple crabs, which is good because in the Space Invaders game, we're gonna have endless crabs. Let me just look at the time really quick. Alrighty, we're just at a little bit under 25 minutes. And so let's draw one entire line of crabs. I'm gonna make them a little smaller. I'm gonna put them at like 3. We're gonna use a while loop. We don't wanna be, for every crab that we draw, we don't want to do this. We don't want to automate the process. And so I'm going to say here that while X is less than the width of the window, which is up here, 500. X starts at 100. As a matter of fact, I can probably start at X at 0 and Y at 0. While x is less than 100, I want to make a crab. But then after I make the crab, I want to increase the x value for the next crab. All the crabs are going to be given the name of Nick, or if you want to be a little more generic and not give it a specific name, you could just call it C. C, short for crab. It won't make a difference. Let me explain what's going on here. X is 0. 0 is less than 500. That's what this is saying. And while this is true, which it is, 0 is less than 500. Create a crab. C is a crab. Send it the window that you want to draw, the X, the Y, and the width, and then draw the crab. And then I'm going to say X is what it used to be, in this case 0, plus delta times 15. Now what this does is it increments X. X changes. 15 times 3 is 45. And so, because a loop, when I loop back, I'm going to say, okay, it's 45, that's its new value, less than 500. The answer is yes. And so I'm going to make a new crab now, one more, where I'm going to send it the window 45, 0, delta. So it draws a new crab now. Draw the crab, and then X is going to be what it used to be, which in this case was 45, plus 3 times 15, which is another 45, so that's 90. 90 is still less than 500, and so we keep drawing crabs and crabs and crabs until we get to a point where X is no longer less than 500. Let me run this, and I should get a lot of crabs right here. You see? Perfect. Okay, it looks good. That's where we're going to stop for this video. We'll go ahead and continue on our next video.